There's a point in retirement planning where the focus begins to shift. It's no longer just about how much you've saved. Instead, the question becomes how those savings actually translate into reliable income over time, and whether that income will support your lifestyle without creating unnecessary risk. This is where many people start to feel uncertain, not because they've made poor decisions, but because the problem they are trying to solve has changed. Building a portfolio and using that portfolio to generate income are two very different challenges, and the transition between the two is not always clear. As a result, people often find themselves making important decisions without a clear framework. They're unsure how much they can safely spend, uncertain about where income should come from, and unclear on how long their money will actually last. When those decisions are not grounded in a structured plan, it often leads to a lot of guesswork. I recently spoke with someone who had just stepped away from a very long work career. They built a substantial portfolio, they were very disciplined over time, they avoided the kinds of mistakes that typically set people back into retirement planning. From the outside, their situation looked very strong. When we began discussing how they would plan to generate the income in retirement, it became clear there was no defined structure behind their decisions. They were unsure which accounts to draw from first. They had not fully considered how taxes would affect the withdrawals. They did not have a clear answer on the very specific, important question of how much they could safely spend each year in retirement. So this was not a savings issue. It was more of a clarity issue. Once we worked through a structured approach, the shift was not just financial. It was their ability to understand how each decision fit into the broader overall plan. So the question becomes how you move from that kind of uncertainty to a position where your decisions are grounded in a clear framework. In our experience, that comes from working through a set of connected decisions in the right order, whether each step will build on the last and contributes to a plan that is both understandable and reliable over your retirement. If you're in a similar position and want to understand how this applies to your situation, there will be a link in the description where you can schedule a call with our team. So let's begin by walking through how these pieces come together based on what you already know. So let's take a closer look at the framework, beginning with step one. Let's shift from savings to income. The first step is a shift in overall perspective. A lot of people approach retirement planning by focusing only on how much they've saved, but retirement itself isn't built on just a single number. It's built on income and retirement over time. Your portfolio isn't something you simply spend down without a structure in place. It's a resource that needs to generate income in a way that supports your lifestyle over time. So rather than asking whether you have enough saved, a better question perhaps is how much income can your assets generate in a sustainable way for the duration of your retirement? And that shift in thinking changes how every other decision will be approached in retirement. That takes us to step two. Let's define your income gap. So once that perspective is in place, the next step is to define your income gap. This is where a simple calculation, but a very important calculation comes in. Your income gap is the difference between what you expect to spend and what is already coming in through predictable guaranteed income sources such as Social Security or a pension. For example, if you expect to spend, let's say, $6,000 per month, that's about $72,000 a year. So now let's take your income sources, let's say Social Security and the other fixed income sources, perhaps a pension, provide $40,000 per year. That leaves you with the income gap of $32,000. Now that is the amount that your portfolio needs to generate so that you can withdraw those funds and allow your overall investments to still work for you. Now this step is often overlooked, but it's one of the most important parts of the entire process. Without it, it becomes very difficult to evaluate whether a plan is realistic or how different decisions will impact your overall long-term outcome in retirement. So next, let's take step three and connect the gap to your assets. Once we have clarity around the income gap and that's clearly defined, we know the figure, the next step is to connect this requirement to your overall available assets. This is where we calculate what is known as a withdrawal rate. So simply we can take the income gap and divide it by your liquid assets, which typically for liquid assets would be things like your investment accounts, your retirement accounts, cash on hand, anything that you could use quickly for a distribution to fund your retirement income needs. So for example, if the income gap is $32,000 and you have a liquid asset amount of about $800,000, then simply dividing 300 or 32,000 divided by the 800,000 gives us a withdrawal rate of 4%. That number provides a clearer picture of how hard your portfolio needs to work to support your long-term plan. Now, historically, a withdrawal rate in that range of 4 to 5% has often been considered a very sustainable withdrawal level over longer retirement periods, 25, 30 years into the future. Although it always depends on specifics of your specific situation. Now, if that number begins to move higher, it may indicate that adjustments could be needed. But the value of this step is not just the number itself, it's the clarity that it provides when evaluating the sustainability of your overall retirement plan. So step 4, let's optimize the overall system. And this is where planning really becomes more meaningful. Because once you understand your baseline, you begin to improve it by adjusting just little different parts of the plan. For example, the timing of Social Security can have a meaningful impact. Delaying benefits in the right situation could increase guaranteed income, which reduces the income gap and overall lowers your withdrawal rate. Now, tax planning is another important factor. It's not just about how much you withdraw, but how much you keep after taxes. The order in which you withdraw from different accounts could significantly affect your long-term outcomes. Investment strategy is also important and plays a key role here for your long-term plan. The goal is not simply to pursue higher returns, but to structure the portfolio in a way that supports reliable income while maintaining long-term growth. And then there's also other areas like healthcare planning and long-term care planning, which can be often overlooked but could have a significant impact if they're not addressed early. And this is where we spend a significant amount of time with our clients. Not just identifying individual strategies, but helping them understand how these decisions interact so they can evaluate the trade-offs and clearly make very important informed decisions. If you're unsure whether your current plan is structured efficiently, this is often one of the first areas we always review together. And you can schedule a call using the link in the description and we'll walk you through how your current plan is functioning and where that may bring opportunities to improve it. So step 5, let's bring this all together. So when you step back and look at this as a whole, the challenge is not usually a lack of effort or discipline. It's the decisions that have been brought together into one single coordinated plan. People often make thoughtful choices over time, but those choices are made independently, which makes it difficult to understand how everything fits together cohesively. If you think about your own situation, the goal is not just savings in place. It's to understand how those savings could translate into income, how that income is going to be taxed, and how your decisions today could affect your long-term outcomes in retirement over time. A useful place to start is simply gaining clarity on your overall current plan and does it function well as an overall system for your success. Where are the gaps? Where are the inefficiencies? How do you make decisions that interact well with each other? That's typically what we focus on with the initial conversation. And if that's something you'd find valuable, please schedule a call now using the link in the description below. At the end of the day, retirement isn't just about having a plan in place. It's about understanding how that plan actually behaves over time and whether your income would hold up the way that you desire and expect for it to. So whether your decision today is this or that, we hope it creates flexibility and avoids limitations that later may be hard to change. And whether everything you've built today is working together in the most efficient way that it should. That's the difference most people are trying to solve. And once you can clearly see the difference, the decisions tend to become a lot more straightforward. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.